Board Clerk, will you call the roll, please?
Good evening, everyone. I will begin with Director Wood.
Here.
Rice.
Here.
Jones.
Here.
White.
Here. Here.
Clark.
Present.
And President Sailors, turning it over to you.
Thank you very much. The next thing on the agenda is the pledge to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. The next item is the Metro Cable announcement. The open session meeting is videotaped for Cablecast on Metro Cable 14. Replay on Saturday, September 10th at 2 p.m. and Monday, September 12th at 2 p.m. on Channel 14. Webcast at metro14live.saccounty.net. We now have the opportunity for public to discuss matters of public interest within the district jurisdiction, including items on or not on the agenda. Madam Clerk, do we have any speakers tonight?
We do. We have Roger Mitchell in the audience with us this evening. He will be joining us at the podium.
Good evening, Roger Mitchell.
And Roger, while you are joining us at the podium, I will just let you know that our microphones are not live in this room. However, the microphone set on the podium is going to allow all of our virtual audience to hear you.
Good evening, Board. Chief. Hey, Roger. Melissa, Chief Counsel, Chief Bailey. My name is Roger Mitchell. I was also a board of director here, retired fire captain, and I lead a group in Rio Linda that's restoring Rio Linda's second ever fire engine. Most of you know about that. It's a 1927 LaFrance. We haven't been able to have a fundraising dinner for the last 2 years due to our pandemic, but we're having one this year. I've been here before this board, and most of the directors have bought tickets. I have tickets here tonight, but it'll be October the 8th. That's the second Saturday in October, 5 o'clock at the Rio Linda, Alberta Recreation and Park District office. The tickets are $20, complete barbecue meal in the past. And the cook is one of our own. He is one of the master mechanics at Metro Fire, Scott Courtney. He's done this for many years, and he's also one of the mechanics that helps on the restoration. So we're lucky to have him. Before you tonight, you have a small gift. This will be placed at every place setting at the dinner. It's just a little gift for everyone. We would like to thank Safeway and Food Max for the donation of the water. We'd like to thank Metro Fire for allowing us to put their emblem on here because they've been so helpful in these fundraisers and everything we've done in this restoration, as well as the restoration of the station. So this will be at every actual place. It's not water to drink there. There's all kinds of ice water available to you when you come to the dinner. So we're hope to see you there. Ty Bailey has been helpful in saying he'll take some tickets from me. So for the staff, because I will tell you this, tentatively, one of our opening speakers, the world-class speaker, Chief Todd Harms. And we are going to have a presentation to Todd from the Park District and the restoration crew for all of his support since he's been chief. I'm proud to tell you I was on the hiring team for Todd, and he's just been magnificent help on this project. So you need to know that. So I'm hawking tickets tonight. They're $20. Hopefully all of you can come, especially with this special presentation for Chief Harms. One of the other speakers that's confirmed for that evening to help open the event is our supervisor, Sue Frost. She's been a great help to this, and she has, for the last 4 that I can remember, actually sponsored the events. So she is a great supporter of it, and we're glad to have her on board. So I'm here tonight to tell you about that. Hopefully you all can come. I would like to tell you one small thing. There is, not a small thing really, there's a new company that has came on board in this restoration project. They're called Good Life. I don't know if you know them, but they're going to be at some of your meetings with me. They have agreed to help raise approximately $1.25 million for the complete restoration of your station, old number 111. We don't know how long that's going to take, but I would tell you in the binder that we have to show who's supporting this, I would tell you tonight that not only Metro Fire, Sacramento County have agreed to support this effort, but Local 522 has written a letter of support. And I would like to look at a good friend of mine and a new director on your board, Mr. Brian Rice. Him and I have had a couple of conversations, and not that I remember all of it, it was just 20 minutes ago, Director, but maybe you would let the board and the audience know what you might, and I say might, be able to do to add to our sponsorships.
Certainly, Roger. I'll put an ask into some of the international leadership and then just acquaintances and friends that I have at different levels here throughout Sacramento. I've kind of watched you over the years and your love of the Rio Linda community and how you represent, and I'm happy to lend a hand whenever and wherever I can. And I was at the first dinner.
I know you were, and I thank you for that.
Yes.
I would tell you that one of the first things we decided on this restoration, this can't be a restoration for old Rio Linda fire truck and station. This has to represent all the predecessor districts that make up Metro Fire and the type of fire stations that were there years ago and the type of equipment. Because I don't think we'd be successful in standing in front of this board and telling you we want this just for this small community. It's not. It's for the entire Metro Fire. So with that, I would be prepared to answer any questions and stay after the meeting with some tickets. And again, thank Chief Ty Bailey for his willing to help with this, with the staff tickets, because it'd be nice to have as many of the staff there that we can to honor Chief Harms. So any questions?
Are there any questions?
Yeah. What time is the function?
5 o'clock
5 p.m. Okay.
at
Yeah.
October the 8th.
Yeah.
And that's when we say we're going to start, but we've always said early 5 o'clock because half of the people don't get there till 5:30. If you said 6, half of them wouldn't get there till 6:30. So it's 5 o'clock, but we'll wait till you're all there.
Okay.
So
Thank you.
any other questions?
Thank you, Roger.
Thank you. And again, Director Rice, you and I have been friends for a long time. Back to the old Carmichael days.
Yep, we go back a ways.
For your help. I thank you from the bottom of my heart. Thank you.
Honored, Raj.
Madam Clerk, are there any other speakers tonight?
There are no other speakers in person, and Art, if you could allow all of our virtual audience to unmute themselves.
I think you now have the ability to unmute yourself if there's anything you would like to present to the board at this time. No response.
Hearing none, I'll turn it over to you, President Sailors.
Thank you. The next item on our agenda is consent items. If we don't have any questions on consent, I'll take a motion in a second.
I'll make a motion. I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Madam Clerk, will you call the roll, please?
Director Wood.
Aye.
Rice.
Aye.
Jones.
Aye.
White.
Aye.
Clark.
Aye.
And Sailors.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda are action items. The first one is the ratification of resolution to extend teleconference of board meetings, Government Code 54953 E-3. This, once again, will continue to allow us to do a combination in person and a Zoom meeting. Does anyone have any questions about this? Seeing none, I'll take a motion and a second.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Madam Clerk, will you call the roll, please?
Director Wood,
Aye.
Rice,
Aye.
Jones,
Aye.
White,
Aye.
Clark,
Aye.
and Sailors.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you. The next item, number 2, the Sacramento Regional Incident Management Team, MOA for participation. Deputy Chief Mitchell.
Good evening, President Sailors, Board, everybody in attendance. Thank you. My name is Adam Mitchell. I'm the Deputy Chief of Operations. I am also our current Sacramento Regional Incident Management Team Incident Commander for our agency. So I'm here tonight I'll give you a little bit of background on the Sac Regional IMT. It's been around since 2010. So it's been over a decade. We started with our local cooperator agencies in the county here, as well as CAL FIRE up in Amador El Dorado unit. It's grown over the years. We've also now included some members from Sacramento County OES, but participating agencies, specifically Sacramento Sheriff's Department, Sacramento Police Department, and now most recently Nevada Yuba Placer unit to grow the team membership as signatory agencies. Like I said, it's been around since 2010. We've deployed the team over 30 times to incidents both within and outside of our county. Currently, our team's deployed up to the mosquito incident. And it's been a very valuable asset on all hazards aspects. We've deployed for funeral services, for civil unrest events, river events, fires, all kinds of different things, as well as out of our area down to the Calaveras County area and also to Stockton for their fallen fire captain. It's been successful. But the base of the team, as you see in the staff report, is set up on reciprocal agreements. So if we have an incident within our county that doesn't reach those levels for either the Stafford Act or the CFAA or reimbursable events under declarations, each agency participate is agreeing to participate on their own cost with that reciprocity being expected. So that's how it's worked the whole time. This agreement that is before you tonight doesn't change any of the fiscal impacts per se. It really moves our manual for the team to a more best practice to that MOA agreement, so that as we sign that, and all 8 agencies are doing the same thing, make the signatures in the MOA. That way, when we update our manual, we don't have to do more signatures and come back to request that. The manual needs to change and adapt often, just based off of the membership and the dynamics that brings with it. But it's been a very valuable team. So due to that increase in member agencies and the best practices, we're recommending tonight that the Board of Directors authorize the fire chief to sign the MOA for continued participation in the Sacramento Regional Incident Management Team. Happy to take any questions if there are any.
Thank you. Does anyone have any questions? Go ahead.
It's really more of a comment than a question, but Chief, as you know, I saw you that evening. I was impressed by the team's ability to respond quickly on short notice on the 4th of July up and help bring some early organization to the electrifier. I think requesting the SAC regional team early on was one of the really good early decisions that were made that really helped keep that incident, a rapidly growing incident on a holiday weekend, pretty organized. So thanks.
That. They have done phenomenal work and are recognized statewide as one of the top, if not the top type 3 team. And so that's due to our dedication as agency. So thank you. Appreciate that, Director White.
Any other questions or comments? Thank you very much for that presentation, Chief Mitchell.
I'll move staff's recommendation.
Second.
We have a motion and a second.
Director Wood,
Aye.
Rice.
Aye.
Jones,
Aye.
White,
Aye.
Clark,
Aye.
and Sailors.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you. Next on the agenda, number 3, fiscal year 2022-23 final budget, CFO Dave O'Toole.
Good evening, Madam Chair and members. This evening I'll be presenting the final budget. But before I do that, let's see, we have the slides. And Chief Wagaman is here. And Chief, would you like to make some remarks?
Yes, thank you, CFO O'Toole. First off, good evening, directors. Before you tonight and for your approval is almost a $300 million budget. And if you peel that budget back, I can't even begin to explain the amount of hours that have gone into putting this package together. So I commend CFO O'Toole, his staff, our controller, Ron Epitrod, Aaron Castleberry, Jeff Fry on the capital improvement plan, as well as all the other staff and managers that have contributed to this budget. As you know, with any budget, it's a moving target. It's constantly in motion, and we do our best based on the information that we have today. With that, there is some slight variations between preliminary budget and final budget, and that's typically what we see. If you look at it with a microscope, I can tell you that the most significant change is on the capital improvement side. And we're dealing with some very interesting circumstances specific to our fire apparatus and our ambulances. I can tell you if we order an ambulance today, after we go through the speccing process, which can take 3 to 6 months, it'll be about 2 to 2.5 years before that ambulance arrives. On our Type 1 fire engines, we're in excess of 900 days. So what that tells us as an agency, in order for us to properly plan to make sure that our firefighters have the appropriate equipment and it doesn't break down on them, that we need to plan now for the future. So a lot of those changes that you see on the CIP are specific to our fire apparatus. Regarding our fiscal outlook, if we snapshot today and we look forward, the good news is things are looking very good for us over the next 2 to 3 years. So much so that our goal to receive a 15% reserve, I think, is very achievable, as well as our ability to start to reduce some of our liabilities with respect to financing apparatus. So I'll go ahead and pass it back over to Mr. O'Toole for a little bit deeper dive into our budgetary process. Thank you.
So for this agenda, we'll start with the preliminary budget recap and then move into the current year, the 22-23 budget overview, revenues, expenditures, look at some other fund conditions. There's a long-term forecast towards the end, and then a quick mention of the capital improvement program and the tie-in with the budget, and of course, time for questions and comments. So with the preliminary budget, to recap that, the 22-23 preliminary budget is a balanced budget with budgeted expenditures and transfers roughly equal to the expenditures, expected revenues and transfers in. The 2.1 million transferred from the general fund to close the mid-year shortfall has been repaid. Property tax growth in 22-23 was pegged at 6.6%, 6 million relative to the 21-22 budget. Mid-year budget, as passed in March 2022. And finally, the projected year-end reserve was 13%, or 33.8 million, which was up from the 12.5% in the mid-year. So creeping back up towards 15% in the mid-year. Now we'll look at turn into the 22-23 budget. This slide is the summary of all funds. This table can be found on page 25 of the budget report. It provides the biggest picture of the budget by fund, with revenues in the top section, the expenditures in the middle, and then transfers in the bottom third. The row at the bottom is the change in fund balance. The first column of numbers is a general fund. I'll go over those circled items in a moment. The first circle at the top is revenues, 257.4 million in general fund revenues in the budget year, 256.6 million almost in expenditures, and a positive difference of 836,000 before any revenues and transfers. All the way at the bottom and circled is the change in fund balance, which is if you add in the net transfers of 3.7 million, which is circled, yields a positive fund balance of 4.6 million. In the capital facilities fund, which is the next column over, the 20.8 million circled there, that is the expenditures and capital from the capital facilities fund, which are covered by 7.9 million in lease financing, the sale of a former fire property at 630,000, and a $5 million transfer from the general fund. The change in fund balance is a negative 7.2. Just want to be clear, that doesn't indicate a negative fund balance. That's just the change in fund balance. The actual fund balance, which can be found actually on the next page of the report, in the capital facilities fund is 2.3 million, the same as we reported in the preliminary budget. What the negative change reflects here is mainly a large carry forward of capital projects from the prior year, which increases the expenditures shown. We'll talk more about the funds further to the right as we move through the presentation, but you can see the circled total revenues, 279.5 million, from all sources. Expenditures at 290.9. With the transfers, there's a net negative change of negative 2.8, which of course is largely made up of that change in the capital facilities fund. Next, we'll turn to the general fund. This is the comparing actuals from 2021, unaudited figures from 21-22, the preliminary 22-23, and the final, and then the variance. Those are the 5 columns with the numbers below. This is on page 33 of the budget report. Starting with property taxes, the row circled with a long oval. Final expected property tax revenues for 22-23 are $189.3 million. That's $14.7 million increase, a $14.7 million increase in property taxes revenues received by the district over the last year. After final reconciliations with property tax payments received after July 1 that are accrued back to 21-22, we expect a 7.6% growth year over year. Let's see, looking at the next row of circles is the revenues line. So adding in other revenue sources like charges for services provided like medic fees, total revenues will climb to nearly 20.7 million over the last fiscal year to 257.4 million. Again, let's see, the proposed budget reflects a nearly $5 million increase in labor costs relative to the unaudited figures from last year to 214.6 million, which was the 214.6 million was also the number we reported in the preliminary budget. So that the total number stayed the same. Services and supplies are expected to grow by 4.2 million over last year to 37.4 million. And with transfers, revenues, and expenditures, we also know as the change in fund balance by is 4.6 million at the bottom there. It's a familiar slide. The compares the has the total revenues in the dark shade, and the lighter is the property taxes. You can see looking at revenue history that the this is the share of the total revenue that's not property taxes is gradually expanding, and while all sources are creeping up. This is actually the 10th consecutive year of growth in property tax revenue and the 12th consecutive year of total revenue growth. Taking us all the way back to 2010-11. Let's see, general fund revenues has declined by about 5% since over that time, as a share of the total is now projected to be about 74% of the total revenues in 22-23. So we're making up revenues more so with other sources, diversifying our revenues, if you will. Next slide, a little more on general fund revenues. Let's see, we talked about the total already, 257.4 million. Overall, it's a $20.6 million increase. Medic transport revenues will grow by about 2% in the budget year, or 1.6 million to 47 million. In the Ground Emergency Medic Transport Program, or GEMT, the program where we receive partial state reimbursement for medic transports of Medi-Cal beneficiaries. We expect to receive back payments for the last 4 years of approximately 4 million. There will be more to report on GEMT in the coming months.
Just a question on back payment. How does that work? That's the first time I've heard that.
So the DHCS was withholding payments for going all the way back to 1819 and deliberating over changes to the program, how it might affect our payments. And so we've been putting in but not receiving out. And then within it was this spring, April or so, they announced, okay, we'll start paying you for those back years. So we receive a little less than 1 million a year, and we expect to receive all that in 22-23.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. Let's see, net IGT revenues are down slightly from last year by about 700,000 to 8.7 million. The State Department of Healthcare Services advises us to expect some decline there. As there are changes to the program, including a possible smaller group of managed care providers participating in it, but we're holding it at 8.7 in the budget year. Finally, the projected reserve as of June 30, 2023, is 36.2 million, or 13.8%. So we're about 0.8% higher than we were in the preliminary, so headed in the right direction, and but still short of the 15% target, of course. The reserve will be updated in March 2023 with the mid-year budget and will include unspent funds in 21-22. So while the exact figure won't be known until the annual audit, where we move from unaudited figures to audited figures, we anticipate there will be unspent funds at the mid-year, and which will increase the reserve.
And one quick question on the IGT. So that 8.7, is that our participation level given the headroom that's in that, or is there still headroom in the intergovernmental transfer fund for growth beyond that? Do you know?
What we're getting from our consultant and DHS is with the PPGMT program, I think you're familiar with that, that there will, the best we can hope for is stability there, but as PPGMT takes over, there will probably be more revenue there. So we're still working with our consultant to get that refined. It's just, it's not built into the budget. We didn't, but the way the timing of where the money comes in with the 8.7 is pretty solid because it's for a prior year. But next year, as we're looking at IGT, it could move around.
And if that does move forward where there's a fire department specific or fire agency specific intergovernmental transfer program rather than just maintaining participation in the current hospital rate range program, correct? Is that what you're saying?
Well, with regards to, we may see some of the providers like your Kaisers or your West, they may pull out.
Okay.
Thanks. The next, this pie chart here is pretty straightforward. It's on the expenditure side, kind of a easy to understand picture. So labor costs are about 82% of the general fund budget. Service and supplies are 14.2%. And just a smattering of other transfers out, and taxes and licenses and debt services are about 4%. Moving to labor, as I mentioned, 214.5 million budget, which is up 4.5 million over last year and 18.4 over 2021. Total compensation costs will grow year over year by 4.5 million or 4%, reflecting end of year 2021 savings. The 4% wage increase, also an assumption that positions will be filled. We do that every year, and natural wage growth through promotions and things of that nature. Constant staffing is budgeted to return to pre-pandemic levels, savings about 4.1 million relative to the prior year budget. And pension contributions will tick up by about 5.3 million. Recall that the windfall market returns we were talking about last year from at June 30 to 2021. There's about a 2-year lag on that. So we won't actually see those results until next July. And when we do, they'll be amortized. So it won't be an immediate windfall, if you will. Let's see, PERS OPEB contributions on the other hand are just a 1-year lag. So we saw our PERS OPEB contributions go down. We have a savings about 2.5 million there relative to last year. Reflecting the decline in COVID cases, we expect workers' comp claims to subside, and savings about $1 million. The service and supplies side of the expenditures, total service and supplies budget again is 37.4 million. That's 4.4 million over the unaudited 2021 figure. Liability insurance premiums are rising again by about 744,000. Education and training services are going up mainly because staff will be catching up on trainings that didn't occur during the pandemic. There's some inflationary and supply chain pressures, as mentioned before. Vehicle maintenance is expected to go up by 354,000, and computer services by 260,000.
Sorry, Ron, just one last question on that. A liability insurance increase, that's our SDRMA. Is that correct? Or
I believe that's the
special district.
Not yes. Moving to expenditures related to debt service assessments and contributions. We pay the county 1.9 million for property tax administration. I mentioned before, they are implementing a new IT system, so we expect our contribution there to go up substantially to pay for that system over a couple of years. We'll also make a $1.9 million payment to the state for the GEMT quality assurance fee program, an expense that gets more than offset by the revenues that come in through transports. And general fund debt service payments on lease revenue bonds total 259,000, which is a savings of 53,000 due to the recently executed lease revenue bond arrangement that the board adopted last year. Turning to capital outlay, the slide is a summary of capital outlay spending from the Capital Facilities Fund, from the Development Impact Fee Fund, and federal grants. It ties to the capital outlay summary found on page 31 of the budget. Some but not all the items shown on this page are in the CIP. A crucial distinction is that the CIP is items that are cost $50,000 or more and have a useful life of more than 1 year. Key items included are the Copter 3 conversion, $750,000, 5 Type 1 engines for $4.2 million, 3 ambulances there, $871,000, 6 ambulance remounts, and the Vineyard Springs station redesign or design. Any unspent capital facilities funds will be retained in the capital facilities fund to be proposed for repurposing in the mid-year of 22-23 or next year 23-24. Well, let's turn to the capital facilities fund. So the display there shows capital facilities fund expenditures at 20.8 million, which is circled there towards the right in the top. Funded by 7.9 million in capital leases. Again, there's a 630,000 from the sale of a property asset and 5 million in transfer from the general fund. The balance sheet there's negative 7.3 million talked about earlier is circled and is covered by the carryover balances from 21-22 for projects that were carried over. As mentioned earlier, the balance in the fund is still 2.3 million. The major expenditure change relative to 21-22 is a lease bond retirement, which is reflected as a special item and offset in the issuance of capital leases. And that is circled at the bottom of the unaudited fiscal year 21-22 column, shown as negative 8.1 million. Moving to the grants fund, total grant fund revenues are anticipated to grow by 4.8 million to nearly 5.2 million. That's circled there. That's due to a surge in intergovernmental grants related to the SAFER program, is the bulk of it. Total grant expenditures will shrink slightly since last year from 5.5 million to just over 5.3 million, which is circled there. And grant funded labor costs will grow from 1.3 million to 4.5 million, reflecting expenditures from the SAFER grant. Factoring transfers the expected change in balance is negative 112,000, a gap that will be closed using the double balances in that fund. Lease properties fund. Lease property rental income revenues budgeted at approximately 1.1 million in 22-23, which is about the same as last year. Expenditures are expected to grow by 500,000 relative to the unaudited numbers for fiscal year 21-22, reaching 1.1 million. The projected change in balance is now negative 24,000, which again will be covered using balances in that fund. With having covered the funds, I want to look forward with the forecast. Before I do that, just to share some assumptions with you. Let's see. On the revenue side, we use for our forecast our property tax consultants projections through 26-27, and then added a year, basically straight lined it to get the additional year. So we have 5 full years after this year. On the IGT, we had no change over the forecast period relative to the current year. 22-23 that is, and if it doesn't increase or decrease, and this is the same practice we used last year.
Question.
Yeah.
On GEMT and IGT, since its inception, I know we've used consultants quite a bit here. Have we met the projections each time, or do we fall short, or where do we find ourselves with that?
I have a year of experience in this, so I can say on the IGT side, we've been they do provide that for us. It's about 2% would be the outer limit of what they've deviated from, so it's pretty accurate. Okay. On GMT, we're doing that more in-house.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll follow up later.
Yeah, please do.
Chief, I'll follow up. Thank you.
Let's see. The expenditure side, the forecast assumes 1% annual raise in salaries. That was just to kind of put something in the expenditures to show, or, you know, what a very modest salary increase would look like. So that's built in. Let's see, pension cost share between employer and employee doesn't change. It's the same as last year. We didn't change that balance. Inflation assumes an 8.3% inflation rate for 22-23, which is based on recent Bureau of Labor Statistics data, and then stepping that down at 1% a year through the period of the forecast. Incidentally, last year we had 2% inflation built in, so big change. Borrowing rate is also included in there in the forecast. It increased it to 4.5% in the budget year and 4.5% for 22-23 and 23-24, and then gradually stepping down by a half point as the Fed's interventions take their effect and those rates come down, we hope. So those are the assumptions. Let's look at some of the pictures. The first forecast shows a revenues and expenditures overview starting in 17-18, so basically looking 5 years backward, and then we have the current year, and then we have 5 years forward. The green bar is revenues, the red bar is expenditures. You can notice in the middle of the chart in fiscal year 21-22, general fund expenditures and transfers exceeded revenues and expenditures and transfers exceeded transfers out exceeded revenues and transfers in. So that gap was closed in the mid-year, as we discussed. The next column over, the circle top in fiscal year 2023 shows the reverse, with revenues again exceeding expenditures and following that trend through the forecast period with a widening gap between the height of the green line and the red line. It's helped out by a strong assumption of property tax growth, as well as pension obligation bonds rolling off beginning in 25-26. Next slide is those pension obligation bonds. This chart shows the same period, same 11 years. You can see that the POB bonds start to reduce in 25-26, saving approximately $4 million, and then there's another savings of approximately $3 million the next year, and then no POBs in 26-27. Next slide is general fund reserves. This chart has a couple things going on. It basically primarily is meant to trace the reserve levels in the general fund over that same period. The red line is the general fund reserve ratio, which you can read in the right side columns. If you look at the red line and look to the right, you can see what percentage it is. The vertical blue, the green line represents the 15% benchmark, so that's just there to make it clear where that 15% marker is. And the vertical blue bars are just overlaid onto that to show the amounts of the anticipated amounts of the reserve. So you can see that in 18, 19, and 19, 20, we were there, the 15% reserve, and we were right there. And we dipped down in 2021, 2021, and then 21, 22, expect to creep back up. And then next year, if all works as planned, we would be back at the meeting the target of 23, 20 of the 15% reserve in 23, 24. Yeah, the steep reserve climb has to do with factors like I mentioned, like POB payments ending, which could mean space to invest in other things or reduce costs elsewhere. This slide is just a reminder that the CIP is built in tandem with the final budget, and the numbers that the projects in the CIP are reflected in the budget. So, there's a separate presentation on the CIP in a moment. And before turning to questions and comments, I just want to note that there were significant enhancements made to the budget this year, with thanks to the staff who worked on this. Let's see, the budget narratives in the preliminary budget and the final budget were substantially revamped to include not only divisional background and recent achievement, but also performance measures and goals for the upcoming year. That was a big change. It also includes more budget context and process detail, including descriptions of the economic environment that we find ourselves in, as well as forecasts are included for the first time in the budget document, and also an example of how we match up budgetarily to a comparable district. These enhancements are intended to improve the overall readability of the report, and for the first time, we will be submitting this for a California Society of Municipal Finance Officers Excellence Award. We've never done that before, but we feel like these enhancements enable us to do that. Will be happening later this month. We will submit, and then we'll find out next year. And of course, I want to recognize the finance team again, as Chief Weigman already has, but really appreciate their efforts and work and great contributions. Never easy, but pleased with the product. So with that, I invite your questions and comments.
Thank you. Thank you very much for that presentation, Dave O'Toole. Are there any questions or comments? Go ahead, Ted.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. O'Toole, I didn't notice normally we have a slide about the OPEB trust and how that's going. I hadn't seen anything in this one.
Yeah, I didn't, I don't know if it was in the last one, but I didn't include it for time reasons, but I can definitely, we can talk offline. I can
Okay.
give you an update on that.
All right, thanks.
Another quick, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And they may be able to be answered here, and I may just do some follow-up with the board and just kind of being new. One I've already got, I'll follow up with the IGT, GMT, just out of curiosity, Chief, we'll follow up with you and staff. The one SAFER grant and funding on it, I know we just received one, is that correct? I think that this is something that we need to pay close attention to. It's very good, but we don't want to run out of people when the grant runs out. So I think that's something that we all need to be cognizant of. I had the unfortunate experience to close engine 106 and truck 62 because we didn't plan properly. And we, so that for me, that's a big one, budget ongoing. And I know we probably already thought of it, but let's make sure
This SAFER grant we received it last September. It's a 3-year grant
Perfect.
for 21 people. And the 21 people were in the academy at the beginning of the year.
Perfect.
And they went online in August.
Awesome. So we had plenty of time
Yes.
in our planning. Thank you. The other one, and this might be more just because I don't know. I understand reserve funding and I understand wanting a healthy reserve. I think always my big question, I understand designated and undesignated, and I completely agree with it. My question would be, do we as a board, do we have kind of a trigger point where we use reserves to offset closures or anything like that? If we do, just let me know and I'll let that go and we'll talk offline. I'm good with that. I'm very happy about that.
Yes.
I'm contained. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Rice. Any other questions?
Just my only question is that, so the district is actively looking at our liability insurer and comparable options for that, given the dramatic increase in costs over the recent years.
This is the SDRMA
Yeah.
insurance. So,
Yes, we're actively looking at it. If you recall last year, just due to the time element and potential for liability and not doing our due diligence, there wasn't enough time to move to another company. So we started that process at that point to start to gather that information. We're getting pretty close at this point to make a decision. There are some other options out there that I think will provide the type of insurance that's necessary for an agency of our size at a lesser price point. So more to follow on that, but we're working on.
One other question, and we're also looking at the FASCIS and the EBA as well for given the dramatic increase in costs comparative. So thanks.
Okay. Director Jones, I can't see you on the screen. Do you have any questions?
No, President Sailors. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much for that presentation, Dave O'Toole. Thank you. So at this point, we need to do each resolution separately. So on resolution A, I will accept a motion in a second.
Make a motion that we adopt resolution A 22-23 final budget for the general operating fund 212A.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Madam Clerk, will you call the roll, please?
I'm going to begin with Director Gould because I do show him as joining. However, I'm not sure what his microphone controls are right now.
Okay.
Director Gould, we have a motion and a second on the general fund, which is 212A.
Yes,
All right, we can hear you.
thank you.
And moving to Director Wood.
Aye.
Rice.
Aye.
Jones.
Aye.
White.
Aye.
Clark.
Aye.
And Sailors.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Fine, moving on to resolution in item B. I'll take a motion and a second.
Madam Chair, I'll make the motion on resolution 22-23 final budget for capital facilities fund 212B.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Will you call the roll, please?
Director Gould.
Aye.
Wood.
Aye.
Rice.
Aye.
Jones.
Aye.
White.
Aye.
Clark.
Aye.
And Sailors.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you. For item C, I will take a motion in a second.
I'll make a motion that we adopt 2022-23 final budget for the grant fund 212G. Do we do D?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Will you call the roll, please?
Director Gould.
Aye.
Wood.
Aye.
Rice.
Aye.
Jones.
Aye.
White.
Aye.
Clark.
Aye.
And Sailors.
Aye.
Motion passes.
For item D, David, I will take a motion in a second.
I'll make a motion that we adopt final budget for development impact fees fund 21 or 212I.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Will you call the roll, please?
Director Gould.
Aye.
Wood.
Aye.
Rice.
Aye.
Jones.
Aye.
White.
Aye.
Clark.
Aye.
And Sailors.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you. For item E, I'll take a motion and a second.
Madam Chair. I'll make a motion to accept item E 2022-23 final budget for lease properties fund 212L.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Will you call the roll, please?
Director Gould.
Aye.
Wood.
Aye.
Rice.
Aye.
Jones.
Aye.
White.
Aye.
Clark.
Aye.
And Sailors.
Aye.
Motion passes.
For item F,
I will make a motion that we adopt 2022-23 final budget for the IGT fund 212M.
Second.
we have a motion and a second. Will you call the roll, please?
Director Gould.
Aye.
Wood.
Aye.
Rice.
Aye.
Jones.
Aye.
White.
Aye.
Clark.
Aye.
And Sailors.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you very much. The next item in the action items is number 4, Capital Improvement Program Plan. CFO Dave O'Toole and Jeff Fry, Chief Development Officer.
Good evening again, Madam Chair, board members. With me is Erin Castleberry, actually. So she'll be assisting on any questions about the projects themselves. But this is an update. This is an update to the CIP, which this board passed on June 9th. Let's see, at that time, it was a $9.1 million plan for capital projects for 2022-2023. And similar to our budget process, we've received new project and funding information. Now brings us back for approval for the additional items and the adjustments. So that is the capital improvement program on screen there. That's the cover page. As a brief reminder, the CIP was prepared in accordance with the capital improvement program policy, which the board passed in February of this year, and in accordance with the standards established by the California Society of Municipal Finance Officers and generally accepted accounting principles. The costs presented in this plan will be tied to and are reflected in the final budget. The reasons we're bringing this back to you for approval again are to seek approval for additions to the plan that we've been able to identify and fund after the plan was approved in June. These additions fall into 3 categories. The first one being projects that we weren't tracking that were deemed urgent or well-timed to propose for 22-23. Carryover projects, meaning those that weren't completed in 21-22, and we didn't know that in June this year. We now want to capture and replan for 22-23. And a recent internal discussion made to budget these projects based on encumbrances as opposed to when we expect them to be delivered. So we heard earlier the long delays in apparatus. Well, they may not arrive for a year or two. This plan it shows the expenditure in the 22-23 because we'll be encumbering contracts to receive those items. This is the updated project funding list. So when we looked at this last, there were 12 items on it. There are now 18. Let's see, again, it was 9.1 million at the time. It's now for 22-23, almost 18.4 million, and 28.4 million in total costs. This table is on page 14 of the CIP. If you have it handy. The CIP plan is built not only on funds available in 22-23, but also in additional revenue projections and anticipated debt issuances in subsequent fiscal years. Looking at the funding sources, the updated plan for the funding sources, again, it's of the 18.4 million planned the CIP expenditures in the fiscal year. You'll see that some projects have more than one fund source. The boardroom equipment, for example, includes general fund and capital facilities fund sources. The first 4 projects are equipment-based, boardroom equipment, replacement turnouts, helmets, and recruit turnouts. The next 2 shown on this page are apparatus, 6 ambulance remounts, and service vehicles. Next, this is on page 17 of the CIP. The second part of the same table, 3 more apparatus procurement packages are shown: Copter 3 conversion, various apparatus vehicle replacements such as ambulances, 2 Type 5 engines, water tender, and utility vehicles. There are 5 facilities projects now. That includes the refurbishment of Old Station 68, the Gold Canal property refurbishment, dorm lockers and privacy walls for older stations, the headquarters rooftop replacement, and Station 23 temporary restroom trailer. There are 2 new construction items on this list, planning for the Vineyard Spring Station and the new Station 68 patio coverings. And finally, there's a land acquisition item for Grant Line 220 in Rancho Cordova. Of course, we had to update our debt service schedule as well. This is on page 20 of the plan. The debt service total for 22-23 is 2.5 million. The financing shown includes everything that will be paid for over more than 1 fiscal year through bank financing of the bonds. The board has directed vehicle procurements through finance over the last 5 years or so, and the district has been procuring much of our fleet through that process. And as revenues build and expenditures are reduced, there will be greater opportunities and incentives to purchase vehicles without such financing. That includes the update on the CIP plan. My recommendation is to approve the resolution implementing the updated fiscal year 22-23 CIP. Questions or comments?
Just one on the link to that apparatus bond, that, the even payments. Is there a link to that, a number of years, or is that an ongoing?
Is it something that would show the apparatus financing over 5 years?
Well, it's showing the even payment over the duration of time that you showed. Is there any sunset, or is that anticipated just be continual ongoing at that rate or higher to maintain our apparatus replacement program?
This is a 5-year look, so that's as far as we got.
So, okay, thanks.
Any other questions or comments?
And Director White, I can add on to that. I know our fleet manager put together a really comprehensive plan 5 years ago, and we had been kicking the can for several years. And that plan was to catch us up, then reestablish a good replacement plan moving forward. We're not quite at that catch-up mark yet. When we get to that catch-up mark, I think we can slow some things down a little bit. So as long as we don't defer any future purchases, and we stick to that plan moving forward, but we're not quite there yet.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. So I will entertain a motion in a second on this.
Madam Chair, I will move that we adopt staff recommendation for 22-23 CIP resolution.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Will you call the roll, please?
Director Gould. He let me know in advance that his audio connection was spotty.
Okay.
Still here.
Good.
Aye.
Thank you, Director Gould. Moving to Director Wood.
Aye.
Rice,
Aye.
Jones,
aye,
White,
Aye.
Clark,
Aye.
and Sailors.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you very much. The next thing on our agenda tonight are reports. For the president's report, I would just like to remind all of our directors that we have classes through special districts that we can take to keep ourselves caught up on things like, I don't know, our board clerk has probably
Finance,
ideas.
Management, et cetera.
What?
Finances, management. whatever,
Or,
et cetera.
yeah, that, but also I'm thinking of ethics.
Yeah.
And
Oh,
yeah, our ethics classes that we need to take and our how to be a director, those type of classes. And also coming up in October, at the end of October, FDAC is going to be having a leadership symposium right here in Sacramento. So if you've never been to an FDAC symposium, and this is for anyone in the fire service, they're actually very educational. So that is my report tonight. Chief Wagaman, what have you got for us tonight?
Good evening again, President Sailors and directors. First, start off with promotions. Congratulations to Brenda Briggs. She was promoted to Community Relations Coordinator effective September 6th. So big congratulations to her. Chris Dargan, who previously held that position, he moved on to the OES and assumed a position as a Senior Public Information Officer on their Type 1 All Hazard Incident Management Assistance Team. So congratulations to Chris on his future endeavors with the OES. Reassignments. Firefighter paramedic Danielle Belaski was selected to fill the Mobile Integrated Health Firefighter Paramedic position effective September 12th. Firefighter paramedic Christy Rivera will be returning to her suppression position effective September 11th, and we want to thank her for her dedication and commitment to the Mobile Integrated Health Program. Recruitment. EMS systems technician is open recruitment right now with a final filing date of September 21st, as well as single role paramedic with a final filing date of September 30th. Last week, I had the opportunity to meet up with firefighter Tim White over at Del Campo High School to walk through their fire technology program. Is very similar to the old regional occupational program that we had years ago. It is run by retired engineer Scott Schneider, and he's done a mind-blowing job at setting up a classroom of over 75 students. He basically turned this classroom into a fire station. You walk in and there's literally a fire engine in the classroom. And if that doesn't get your attention between the age of 14, 15, 16, and 17, I don't know what does. I wish that program was there when I was that age. So what a great recruitment tool for Metro Fire. And we're certainly going to support him in his efforts as we continue to push forward. I can tell you that Tim White is connected to that program as well, and he's doing a great job. I was, again, blown away. If you ever get an opportunity, I highly suggest you walk through it. It will take you back. I also returned to Del Campo High School the following Friday. We had Cameron Pasquale. He was recognized here at one of the board meetings just a few months ago for his efforts in recessing his father when he had a heart attack in October of last year. Again, did a phenomenal job. Cameron went through this fire technology program at Del Campo High School, and to make it even more appropriate than recognizing him before this board, we were able to recognize him in front of all of his classmates, all 1,800 of them. It was a great experience. It was not only a recognition for him, but a strong recognition for Scott and what he's done with that program since 2018. It was really great to be a part of that, and I smiled for many, many hours after it. So congratulations to him. Lastly, it's just a recognition for our firefighters. The weather conditions the last few days have been absolutely horrendous. The fire activity has been through the roof, as you could imagine, and they've done a fantastic job. And I know Chief Mitchell is going to go into more details on it. They have done a really good job at keeping those fires small whilst at the same time staying hydrated. Because again, that's one of our biggest concerns on days like this is dropping our very own. And knock on wood, we're not through it yet, but they've been doing a really good job at keeping themselves in check, at the same time doing what they know best, and that's keeping our community safe. So with that, that concludes my report. I'd like to pass it over to Deputy Chief Mitchell for operations report.
Thanks, Chief Wagman, and hello again, board. Just the CTE program, you said a lot, and I can't reiterate that enough. I was out there yesterday for a few hours, and it felt like walking into one of our fire stations with a classroom attached. It's incredible. So if you haven't been there, you haven't seen it, anybody here, go out and take a look at it. It's really amazing what they've done. So looking forward to what we can do moving forward to continue that partnership with them and growing it. So a few updates for you tonight. Statistically, we ran 4,177 total incidents since our last report, which is just under 300 calls per day. Obviously continued busy out there. 177 fire incidents, just about 12.6 fires per day. So for a service delivery team update, we met yesterday morning and discussed the plan for the next steps for that team that helped us incredibly with the amount of work to get us to the safer position deployments and successfully. A couple of changes within the leadership there. The labor positions are remaining the same. Our co-chair positions are changing. From our side, that Chief Rudnicki is moving over to the EMS subgroup co-chair position. Chief Grant Russell, who just became Special Ops Battalion Chief recently, is moving over into that chair, replacing Chief Farica. And then Chief Lozano is remaining as the co-chair for suppression. And with Chief Rudnicki having been the chair for the overall team moving to EMS, I'm going to move on to the team with Director Gildone as the co-chair overseeing the whole program. So thank you to all of those again that supported us through that process of getting us to where we're at. And I'm looking forward to more participation and what we bring moving forward here in the next. So we're going to meet again here shortly to really finalize our plans for where we're going to focus. So lots to do there. Next one is the Madison Avenue AAR video and media release that you all received this week. That was an incident that occurred back on June 25th. I just want to recognize a number of folks from both our agency at Metro Fire and the Sheriff's Office that worked together to put that very highly professionally done video of almost an hour. Phenomenal work on that. They put together that it's great for awareness, but also the educational video potential for somebody using that to understand what kind of dynamic environment that folks are in and the decisions that are made. It was an incredibly complex incident with a lot of difficult decisions. If you were able to watch that, I'm sure you can understand that. Ending up in the rescue of two folks. If those folks hadn't done what they did, they would not have rescued those two folks. So we're very proud of their efforts. I don't want to ruin the surprise, but there is more to come on how we're going to recognize those members here in the near future. Looking forward to that. Some incident overviews. We currently have members deployed on our OES engines, our helicopter, and the SAC regional IMT, as I mentioned earlier, to the mosquito incident up in Placer and now El Dorado County. It has grown immensely in size. If you can look to the east, I'm sure you've seen the mushroom cloud out there, and it's collapsed a few times, creating some erratic fire behavior, multiple evacuations, lots going on up there. It's a very dynamic incident. All of our folks, we've been keeping good tabs on them. They're safe and doing their work, but it's very dynamic, and it's transitioning to type 1 incident management team, actually as soon as the board meeting started tonight. So we'll get more info on those folks. We also have a member up in the Yosemite National Park as part of a different incident management team, helping them manage that. So our members are getting some good exposure out there to bring home so that when we have our own incidents, it helps build us up for the future. As Chief Wagaman mentioned, obviously we all experienced, if you were in town, the record high temperatures. A shift came on duty on Monday, Labor Day, which was the first day of that record high temperature. They had a very busy set. They performed at a high level of professionalism. We did have over those 2 days of 110 plus, closer to 120 than 110. I'm sure everybody that saw the thermometer. 3 different working structure fires involving residential occupancies. A 4-unit apartment building was one of them. All 4 units were uninhabitable, but they kept the fire to the unit of origin. So it was in the 1 unit, but all 4 of them had to be relocated just due to the damage and utilities. We also had a duplex fire that was involving 2 duplexes. All 4 units of those had to be evacuated and relocated, and then also a single family dwelling, which was a total loss just due to extreme growth and fire, but not to our members. They did a great job. They put a lot of effort in and visited with those folks, a couple of those folks on a couple of those incidents, and they were hot. You can see it. They were working hard, but we added extra units. We've had pre-planned some heat mitigations with water and some of those things, and so we were able to support them, but they did a great job. Also had a number of other smaller fires. We experienced medic unit drawdown just due to high call volume during that time. As well, we were deploying the strike teams, the incident management team, but I do want to recognize that our reserve firefighters, as well as our CERT folks, because of the heat, we wouldn't be able to offer some of those rehab facilities or rehab components that they provide. They did a great job. They were out there in the heat as well, and they continue to do so. I know our reserve firefighters have just been turning and burning on multiple incidents because we keep having the fires. B shift took over, and they have been very busy over the last day and a half plus. Don't want to jinx anything. They're taking a breath for a minute here, hopefully, and it continues throughout the night. But again, I visited a couple of our members today. We had up in the North Highlands area, we had 2 duplexes. Fire between the 2 that caught it went to a second alarm. Our members did a great job, got it knocked down, and were happy with their work. And again, they were taking their outer shells off and getting water, and I was glad to see that. Finally, tonight, I can't talk about all the incidents, but I do like reading them when I hear about them. And so I wanted to share one with you tonight on our members, the level of care that they provide. Back on August 21st, Engine 28 and Medic 21 responded for a 69-year-old female who was found to be, after assessing her, in SVT. Upon recognition of the situation, our members delivered 6 total cardioversion shocks to try to restore her rhythm. That was with base contacts because it's above and beyond what's allowed by protocol. But the patient's rhythm returned to normal after that 6th shock. I'm happy to report blood pressure came back up, her heart rate dropped down to 90, and the skin signs improved. Anybody that's ever witnessed that understands that delivering energy to a conscious and alert patient is a tough procedure, but they were able to do that. But they understood the importance and they stuck with it, and we had a successful outcome. So I just wanted to point out and express our appreciation and give some kudos to firefighter Adam Rosen, firefighter Nick Wanner, firefighter John Tan-Brinke, engineer Tim Eisert, and Captain Eric Alekman for performing professional treatment in a very difficult circumstance tonight. With that, that's the end of my report, unless there's any questions.
Any questions or comments from anyone?
I'm just glad to know that our personnel working in this excessive heat have maintained a, fitness level, hydration practices, and acclimated to still perform firefighting duties in this excessive heat wave that we're experiencing. So that's a compliment to the whole department for making sure that we have fit for duty personnel. So thank you.
Thank you, Director White. It's been, you can see in their faces, they're tired, but they've been doing a great job, and we're not through it yet. So knock on wood.
They're tired, we're tired.
I think we just out of curiosity looked, and I think I got a 105 in my neighborhood, and what you hit 107 right now as we're in here meeting. So but it's not really cooling off, and they're working long, arduous shifts throughout it. So thank you.
Yep, and we cool off more down here than they do up in the hills, and we have some folks up there right now in that weather band that doesn't get below probably mid 80s at night. So appreciate the recognition, and they're doing a great job. Thanks.
Go ahead, Director Wood.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Chief Mitchell, I just want to say thanks for the anecdotes. I know you made that comment before you read the story, but getting those real life stories and the being able to share what our members are going through and the good work they're doing is I think very important, not just for us, but for everyone else to hear. And I do appreciate them. It's kind of like the old Paul Harvey rest of the story kind of thing. And so those are without the weird twist, but it's good to have it. So thanks.
Appreciate it.
Okay. No more questions or comments. Thank you for that report. Next up, firefighters local 522. Trevor Jameson. Hello.
Good evening, directors, Chief Wagaman and staff. It's great to be here. Vice President Cole is traveling, and I appreciate the opportunity to come and address you. I am truly humbled to represent all the members of 522, but I'm incredibly proud to be a member of Metro Fire. Watching tonight, the presentation of the budget, the professionalism, the thought towards the future, the questions about the future, it gives me great pride to be from Metro and to know that this is how we're run. There's just a lot of great things on the horizon. I see it, and we appreciate the partnership with all of you and with staff as well. So a couple things to report out that Matt would like me to report out is we'd like to wish Joanna Navarro well in her future endeavors. We'd like to wish Chris Dargan well in his new position with OES. We congratulate Brenda Briggs on her promotion as well. And we have 2 probationary firefighters who have moved on. Andrew Goslin, he's moving on with AMR, and another probie, Philip Sabati, who's moved on. We wish them well in their future. It's nice to report that I'm hearing that we're having productive negotiations meetings, and I know you guys will get an update in that, but Local 522 is looking forward to getting this part of business done, because we have, along with the service delivery team that Chief Mitchell talked about, there's a lot of great thoughts towards the future of how to improve service delivery for the constituents that you serve. And that's important to us. It's very important to the members out there that we find ways to do things better, and that we're not just doing things over and over the same way. And I think there's a lot of great thoughts on that. And it's great to hear that that team element is there. And I think you as board members can be very proud that that's what's going on. So we appreciate that. And then anecdotally, I just want to say too, it's great to hear my good friend Tim White is probably dragging all you guys over there. He's probably pretty relentless, I imagine. But Scott's done a great job over there. And I know you guys have said it, but and you never know where life goes and who's going to work for us someday. But last week I was working at 106. That's where my station, and it was middle of the afternoon on a Sunday afternoon, and the doorbell rang, and you know how that goes to the firehouse Sunday afternoon. We're like, who's coming to the firehouse? But opened the door, and there was 2 young gentlemen, probably 14 and 15 years old, on their bikes, wearing their Del Campo t-shirts, and they wanted a tour of the fire station. I thought, you know what, it's working. That's great, because I know those interactions. One of those kids, if not both, are probably going to work for Metro Fire, and that's pretty cool. So that was good to see, and it's great to hear that you guys are getting out there. So we appreciate that. And then finally, tomorrow there is a line of duty funeral for Ventura City firefighter, paramedic Matthew Clapsaddle. He passed away late in August. And Madam Chair, if it'd be possible to do maybe a moment of silence before you guys go into closed session, we would greatly appreciate that. And that's all I have, unless you have any questions for me.
Any questions?
I just, personally, I wanted to say thanks to the members and the leadership of 522 for the very thoughtful and kind gesture of sending flowers to our home on behalf of my family. I, appreciate that, the condolences and the act of kindness. So thank you.
We're very sorry for your loss. Thank you.
Thank you for that report out. Next on the agenda, committee and delegate reports. The executive committee, the next meeting is to be determined. Communication Center, JPA.
President Sales, yeah, we have not met. We're scheduled to meet on the 13th of this month.
Thank you. Finance and Audit Committee, Director Rosali is not here. I think it's to be determined.
Correct.
Okay. Policy Committee, Director Gould. Do you have any news? I don't think he can hear us, but I'm sure that it is to be determined. All right, board member questions and comments, and we shall start with Director Jones.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd like to show appreciation for all the work that went into our budget proposals and development. I always have never-ending questions on that, and I can pick up the phone and call senior staff on that and help to get some clarification. It's an ongoing challenge, I think, for a lot of us to really get into the nuts and bolts of that. And I appreciate the leadership on that report. Well, you know what? That'll do it for today. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Jones. Director Rice, do you have any comments tonight?
It was my second meeting at a great meeting with the board president and chair and learned some insights. And I very much appreciate that, the time we got to spend. I think for me, one of the things about coming back here that made it easy, and this is what we all need to be known for, is this is a people-driven organization. And that is what, for me, made it easy to come back, is I want to make a difference, not only for the people in Division 7, but also the men and women that work in this department. And it is the men and women. And just to hear some of the things Director Wood would same thing, it's real. And one of the things that I've so appreciated about Metro Fire and the staff, because it goes right to the staff at headquarters, to fleet, to community risk reduction, the way you treat people. And it matters. It's everything. And I think as a director and coming up here, I will do everything I can on your behalf. I only ask a couple of things. Treat all people with dignity and respect. Do the best you can every single time. And I already know you do. And that's what makes it so easy to say this. And you keep doing that, you know, and I think I speak for everybody. We'll have your back. Keep doing what you're doing. It's tough out there. It's not easy. I'm very proud of the men and women that do this job and support each other as we do it. So thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you for your comments. Director Wood.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I wasn't here last week, so my only comment, I just want to welcome you finally. Looking forward to working with you. Known you for a lot of years and respect you tremendously. So thank you.
Thank you, Director Wood. Director Gould, if you can hear us, if you have any comments. I'm thinking that he has lost his audio. Yeah. So Director White.
Well, I too want to say thanks for all the preparation that's gone into the final budget. Also, I want to wish those members of the district who have moved on, thank them for their service to the district and wish them continued success in their future endeavors. You know, I'm sure we'll probably be seeing more of Chris Dargan in that role, and maybe even we have already. And lastly, I just want to thank those that have not only, you know, stepped up, performed well, and promoted into new positions. I see Amy's here, but also Brenda Briggs, who I know who has dedicated probably the better part of her life to this organization and to community risk reduction. So it's nice to see those elevations happen. So thank you.
Thank you. Director Clark.
Yes, Madam Chair, I'd like to actually echo the sentiments of my fellow board directors. I also want to say that I really appreciate the partnership that we have with Local 522. It's always great for the district to work with a lot of people that do all the work and staff. I really appreciate the people out there, our members out there that are busting their tail and sweating out there, because I'm tired of this thing, and I can imagine they are just, it drains you. It's horrible trying to, you know, do a job out there and wearing equipment and, you know, and dealing with, it's just tiring. So much appreciation and understanding of what's going on out there. Thank you for doing a great job. That's all I have.
Thank you, Director Clark. It's always hard going last, but I too would like to express my appreciation for the men and women of Metro Fire out there. The last few days with the temperatures being what they have been, I have been listening to the radio. I have been watching the columns of smoke from my backyard. And I am very concerned about everyone out there. Because when it's 112 or 115, and I know that you're wearing turnouts. I remember what that was like, and it is not fun. And when you take that hose and hose yourself off just to try to cool yourself down so that you can not get heat stroke. Please be careful out there and watch out for each other, because as you're caring for the community that you're working in, you need to take care of each other also. So please, please continue to do the professional jobs that you do and take care of yourselves, take care of each other. And that's all I have tonight. Thank you. We shall now have a moment of silence for Trevor, if you could stand up and say his name.
Firefighter paramedic, insurance, firefighter paramedic Matthew Clapsaddle.
Matthew Clapsaddle. Thank you. A moment of silence. Thank you very much. We shall now go into closed session. Yes.